It's the end of the year again, and I'm gonna start things off with some really good life advice. Enjoy every moment you have with your partner because you don't know when you guys are gonna block each other one day. Anyways, welcome to the Super Chunk Super Audio Show. If you have subscribed to the channel, you are a lovely person, but if you have not, you can be a lovely person too by just pressing the like and subscribe button right here down below. And with that said, it has been quite a while since I last reviewed a Moondrop IEM. The last I heard was the Dark Saber, which I had no impetus to review because they sound like yet another pair of earphones that is tuned to the Harman curve quite strictly. They were okay, but wasn't all that special if I am honest. Well, today we are going to talk about the latest member of the Moondrop Noble family, May. The Noble family from Moondrop has been quite a hit or miss series for me. There are 4 members, the Trues, Lan, Ju, and finally May. I mean, the original True and Lan basically tried to do a neutral tuning but not follow up with acceptable levels of detail. So honestly, these both are quite similar. They then later released the True 2, which was a much needed improvement over the original. They added interchangeable cables and upped the levels of bass on them, which made them a lot more newbie friendly. Next, the Ju was the original True with a USB-C cable for some DSP. The DSP basically just adds more bass to the ultra lean Trues. So really, I think there are better options in the market with regards to the chifi segment, but maybe that will change with the brand new May. Unboxing the May. I mean, it always sounds wrong to say this when it comes to Moondrop IEMs because of the waifu. Yeah. Anyways, on the front, you get a new girl to the harem. May has yet another anime-inspired waifu for you to add to your army of waifus. At its back is just the usual graph. Opening the box, you are then greeted by the May itself, and right below that is its very nice fake leather canister case. Inside the case are the 2-pin USB-C cables and a pack of ear tips. Rather basic presentation, which is in line with expectations, especially when you consider the price. Build quality. I'm not sure if you remember the Moondrop variations because the May does remind me of the variations with the 3D printed chassis. It has the matte finish with minimal post-processing that has a velvety texture. The whole chassis is filled, less the driver chamber. On the whole, it's pretty solid feeling. The faceplate here is quite a pretty one that is reflective with the various motifs laser etched onto it. Inside the earphones are 2 drivers, a 10mm sapphire coated DD plus a 6mm annular planar driver. This is actually a very interesting combination as the DD will compensate for the linearity of tone from the planar driver. The May comes with a 2-pin to USB-C cable. That's right! This means that there is inbuilt DSP into the May. This also means that if you are an Apple user who hasn't got the iPhone 15 yet, you are screwed. Moondrop also has an app that you can use called Moondrop Link. You have to kinda sideload it onto your Android phone by getting the APK file from them, as it's just very strangely not on the Play Store. The app as of 2023 December is pretty darn buggy. It will read the May on the boot up, but after messing around with it, it just kinda disconnects for me. It also has some rather interesting preset EQs such as Hubert Favorite. Hubert is basically the founder of Moondrop. So Hubert Favorite, it's his favorite tuning. It's basically a bass cut, making vocals very prominent but isn't supported by lower mids or bass. I can't say that I like this EQ very much, but the rest are kinda okay. I hope for more Moondrop stuff to not adopt Hubert's favorite EQ. Yeah. Anyways, I hope your experience with the app is much better than mine as it really bugs out too often on me. Sound. As usual, I've included a graph for you guys to see. This is done straight to the earphones itself. This continues the trend set by the True 2, where Moondrop opted for a more fun and dynamic sound compared to the earlier Noble releases of having very lean bass with mediocre resolution. There is a very good pulse coming from the bass section that drives songs forward that is paired with shimmery treble, blending an exciting listening experience. I listened to May through the USB terminated cable directly from my phone. I must also let you know that I eventually did swap the stock cable out for a more traditional experience through the 3.5 or 4.4 jack. I also use my preferred dongle and I must say there is quite a difference. So starting off with bass. Moondrop is doing something rather smart in the May by using a DD in conjunction with a planar driver. This solves the ultra-linear bass response that planar drivers tend to have and adds a lot more dynamism to the sound. The May here is a very dynamic pair of earphone that has a beautiful contrast between the bass notes. There is a springiness to the tone that adds resonance. I like how obvious when the softer bass part contrasts with the louder sections, and this creates a very good exciting pulse in music. Sub-bass extension on May is decent, but I rather like how the mid-bass is portrayed. I'm very satisfied with the bossiness of the mid-bass. Resolution in the bass frequencies is good for the price with good levels of micro contrast. May works well for a large style of music as its dynamic nature can make more recently produced music, which tend to be a little bit more compressed sounding, have a bit more life. Midrange. Tonal weight of the midrange is natural warm, which is pretty much standard in its price range and is a largely palatable affair. Resolution is also good with sufficient levels of micro details, which is in the ballpark of other offerings in its price range. Female vocals are also dainty on the May, but I do hear a tinge of graininess on the upper mids. It is still smooth, just not buttery smooth. Male vocals are not overly full sounding as it basically takes cue from the natural warm tone, but overall decently enjoyable. When I was actively listening to instruments in the mix, I found the definition on them to be just okay. There is this little bit of graininess to the sound that prevents them from absolute clarity. Treble extension. Again, treble extension is just okay. The May does not sound effortlessly airy. I mean, it tries but cannot render an effortless sense of space. Your usual sibilant suspects such as cymbals and hi-hats sound crisp, but has that wee bit of graininess and not as crisp as I'd like. Overall, treble response is decent, but I just wish for it to have a little bit more smoothness. And here is an important note. I need to state that the experience when using May with a normal 3.5 or 4.4mm cable is vastly different from the DSP field Type-C cable. The IM just really becomes quite a bit more boomy and harsh on the treble end. That kind of explains the graininess that I was getting from the upper mids. It's just the inherent tone of the IM. DSP can't really hide that all too much. Also, this also means that the May is basically only kind of usable with the stock cable on, so your options to play with other audio components isn't really possible unless you really like the ton of boom and grain. Soundstage. When it comes to width and height, May has a decent response with regards to that, pretty average in its price class. When it comes to depth and positioning, slightly below average in both depth and positioning. I just don't find depth to be all that impressive despite it having a very nice and dynamic sound. Positioning can be a little bit better if the instrument separation aspect can be a little bit better. And next, we are going to talk about sound comparisons in the similar price range. Firstly, versus the Truthear Project Red. Now, the Truthear Project Red is a slight V-shaped IM. I like its silky character when compared to the May. On the Red, there is a slight emphasis on the sub-bass compared to the mid-bass, but overall bass is dynamic and thumpy. Midrange on the Red is also beautifully smooth with good levels of micro details as well. Treble does not have too much of an extension, but again, it's rather polite sounding. The May, on the other hand, sounds more grainy by comparison to the smoother sounding Red and offers about the same level of details. Next, versus the Simgot EA500. Now, we all know that the EA500 is a sparklier and more technical IM in its price class. It can be a little bit bright, but I found that for the most part, it still has a pretty smooth treble response. The May by comparison isn't as sparkling as the EA500 and has more in terms of bass when compared to the EA500. But I found that when it comes to micro details, the EA500 is still ahead of the May. The May by comparison is still a little bit more fun sounding. And finally, in conclusion, so is the Moondrop May the best of the 4 Noble series? I would say yes. On the stock USB-C cable, it does sound very pleasing and should really please a large number of audience in a small little package. But if you're getting it with the intention to tweak the cables or want to use your own DAP or dongle, I would reconsider as the bass becomes quite boomy and treble has that graininess, spiciness, you know. Yeah, so this is a good pair for those of you who just want to own one and not mess around too much. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Superchunk Super Audio Show. Do check out my socials down below because sometimes I do some rather special events there that is not on YouTube. So do check them out. I think I have something that is closing on the 1st of January. So you have still a few more days to go and participate, and I suggest that you do so because the odds of winning something is actually really rather high. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching the Superchunk Super Audio Show, and I hope to see you guys soon.